Long. The Chinese dragon, known as the Long, is one of the oldest and most powerful sky creatures in all of Asian mythology, and it looks nothing like what most people picture when they hear the word dragon. There are no wings. Instead, the Long is a massive serpentine being that moves through clouds and storms purely through divine will. Its body an impossible composite of 9 different animals. The head of a camel, the antlers of a deer, the eyes of a rabbit, the ears of a cow, the neck of a snake, the belly of a clam, the scales of a carp, the claws of an eagle, and the paws of a tiger. According to Chinese tradition, each Long carries a glowing pearl clutched in one claw, said to contain its power. Color carries strict meaning. Yellow and 5-clawed dragons were reserved exclusively for emperors, while lesser nobility were permitted only 4 claws. Far from the fire-breathing destroyers of Western legend, the Long is fundamentally benevolent, ruling over rain, rivers, and cosmic order, and its appearance in the sky was considered a blessing rather than a warning. Fenghuang. If the Long is the emperor of Chinese mythology, the Fenghuang is its empress, and the two are almost always depicted together for exactly that reason. This is not the Western phoenix that burns and resurrects. The Fenghuang does not die. It simply disappears. According to Chinese tradition, this bird only appears during the reign of a truly virtuous ruler, and when corruption takes hold, it vanishes without a trace, its absence a quiet indictment of whoever sits on the throne. Its body is a sacred composite, with the head of a pheasant and the back of a tortoise among its described features, and its 5-colored plumage of red, yellow, blue, white, and black each represents one of the 5 Confucian virtues. Its song is said to contain all 5 musical tones simultaneously. When it flies overhead, even other birds fall into formation behind it. It has been referenced in Chinese texts as far back as the Zhou dynasty, making it one of the oldest continuously depicted mythological creatures in human history. Tianlong. Most dragons in Chinese mythology govern rivers and rain, but the Tianlong, the heavenly dragon, has a different and considerably more important job. According to Mahayana Buddhist scripture, specifically within the tradition of the Tianlong Babu, or the 8 legions of supernatural beings, the Tianlong is tasked with physically holding up the palaces of the gods to prevent them from collapsing into the world below. Remove the Tianlong, and according to tradition, the celestial architecture comes down with it. These dragons are distinguished from standard Long not by appearance, but by role, existing entirely outside the earthly realm, radiating golden light, their enormous coiled bodies supporting divine structures in the space above the clouds. They are less creatures of nature and more load-bearing pillars of the cosmos, which makes them, arguably, the most structurally important beings in the entire Chinese mythological sky. Yinglong. The Yinglong is strange even by the standards of Chinese dragon mythology, and the reason is simple. It has wings. According to tradition, a dragon must live for an almost incomprehensible span of time before it earns wings, passing through several stages of development over thousands of years before finally becoming a Yinglong, the most ancient and evolved form a dragon can reach. Despite this, the Yinglong is perhaps best known not for its transcendence, but for its service. It fought alongside the Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, in his legendary war against the chaos god Qiyu, and after the battle, it could not ascend back to heaven. Stranded on Earth, it became the source of rain itself, a divine being reduced to atmospheric duty. Its appearance in ancient art is distinctly archaic compared to the sleek imperial Long, colored in deep golden brown, its feathered wings a striking contrast against the otherwise scale-covered body. Bixie. The Bixie does not rule the sky so much as patrol it, hunting demons and malevolent spirits with the focused aggression of a creature specifically engineered for that purpose. It has the body of a muscular lion, feathered wings that carry it silently through the air, and a fierce, open-mouthed expression that became one of the most reproduced images in Han Dynasty sculpture. You can find pairs of them flanking the entrances of ancient Chinese tombs and palace gates, placed there not as decoration, but as active supernatural security. Their purpose is apotropaic, meaning they exist to ward off evil, and according to tradition, their presence alone is enough to prevent malevolent forces from entering a space. The Bixie is sometimes conflated with the Pixiu, another guardian creature, though scholars note these are distinct beings, a confusion that has persisted for centuries and shows no sign of resolving. Peng. The Peng appears in the Zhuangzi, written in the 4th century BCE, and it is introduced with one of the most dramatic origin stories in Chinese literature. It begins as the kun, a fish of incomprehensible size living in the northern sea, and then it transforms. Its back alone, according to the text, is thousands of li across. When it becomes a bird and takes flight toward the southern sea, its wings blot out the sky, and the wind it generates is powerful enough to carry it for months without a single wing beat. The Zhuangzi describes its wingspan as 3,000 li, roughly 1,500 kilometers by modern conversion. Zhuangzi uses the Peng not primarily as a monster, but as a philosophical argument. Small creatures laugh at the Peng because they cannot understand a journey that vast, which is exactly his point about the limits of small thinking. It is simultaneously the largest bird in Chinese mythology and a meditation on perspective. Zhuque. The Zhuque, or vermilion bird, is one of the 4 symbols of Chinese cosmology, and it rules an entire quadrant of the sky. Specifically, it governs the south, the summer, and the planet Mars, its blazing red-orange plumage appropriate for the hottest season and the red planet simultaneously. It is frequently confused with the Fenghuang, and the visual overlap is understandable, but the function is entirely different. The Fenghuang is a moral symbol tied to virtuous rulership. The Zhuque is a cosmic guardian, one of 4 beings that together organize the entire celestial sphere. It corresponds to 7 specific southern lunar mansions, star groupings that Chinese astronomers mapped and named across centuries of observation. Where the Fenghuang represents virtue, the Zhuque represents direction, season, and elemental fire, a being less interested in whether your emperor is good and more interested in holding the southern sky together. Ryu. The Japanese dragon, known as the Ryu, descended from the Chinese Long but diverged significantly over centuries of independent development. The most immediate visual difference is the claws. Chinese imperial dragons have 5, but the Ryu typically has 3, a distinction that carries cultural weight. More importantly, the Ryu is overwhelmingly associated with water and the sea, rather than the sky and rain, and its most famous form, Ryujin, rules the ocean from the underwater dragon palace. Ryugu-jo, a structure described in Japanese mythology as built from red and white coral. According to tradition, Ryujin possesses tidal jewels that control the rise and fall of the sea, and he is described as an ancestor of the Japanese imperial family through a lineage connected to the hero Houri. Where the Chinese Long soars through storm clouds, the Ryu rises from the deep blue-green scales, shedding water as it breaches the surface and enters the sky above the waves. Tengu. The Tengu first appeared in Japanese records in the Nihon Shoki in 720 CE, described as a demon associated with war and disaster, and for the next several centuries, that was the general consensus. Then something unusual happened. They got a promotion. Over time, Tengu were gradually reclassified in Japanese thought from malevolent demons into protective spirits of mountains and martial arts, a shift heavily influenced by the blending of Shinto and Buddhist traditions. There are 2 distinct types. The Karasu Tengu is the older form, crow-headed, winged, and bird-like in body. The Dai Tengu is the later humanoid form with a long red nose, a feathered cloak, and a fan made of feathers called a hauchiwa that can generate storms with a single wave. According to legend, it was a Dai Tengu on Kurama Mountain who trained the young Minamoto no Yoshitsune in swordsmanship, making the Tengu directly responsible for producing one of Japan's most celebrated warriors. Kura. The Karura is the Japanese Buddhist adaptation of the Hindu Garuda, and it kept most of the terrifying qualities of the original while adding a few of its own. It is described as a colossal golden bird with a human body and a bird's head, capable of breathing fire and large enough to swallow dragons whole, which is convenient since its primary diet, according to tradition, consists of Nagas, the great serpents. In Hindu mythology, this creature is Garuda, divine mount of Vishnu, an eternal enemy of serpentine beings. In the Japanese Buddhist context, the Karura becomes one of the Hachibushu, the 8 legions of beings who protect the Dharma, its dragon-eating habit reframed as a form of cosmic pest control. The golden radiance it emits in iconographic depictions is visible from enormous distances, and the shockwave from its wing beats, according to some descriptions, is enough to part the sea below it. Basan. The Basan is a giant supernatural rooster from Iyo province in what is now Ehime Prefecture, and it is documented in the yokai encyclopedias of Toriyama Sekian during the Edo period, which makes it one of the better-sourced strange creatures on this list. What makes it unusual, even among Japanese supernatural birds, is its fire. The Basan breathes flames, but the flames are cold. They produce no heat, burn nothing, and leave no mark. At night, people in bamboo groves would hear a loud, violent rustling, the unmistakable sound of something enormous moving through the canes, and when they went to look, there was nothing there, not even footprints. The Basan was already gone. It is one of the few fire-associated creatures in any mythology whose defining characteristic is that its fire is entirely harmless, which somehow makes it more unsettling than if it simply burned things down. Hoou. The Hoou is the Japanese phoenix, and like its Chinese ancestor, the Fenghuang, it arrives only when something has gone profoundly right. According to Japanese tradition, the Hoou appears exclusively during the reign of a virtuous emperor, and its requirements for landing are extremely specific. It will perch only on a paulownia tree, drink only from fresh mountain springs, and eat only bamboo seeds. These conditions are not coincidental. They are a test. If conditions on Earth are pure enough for the Hoou to find what it needs, the rain is legitimate. If not, it stays away. The bird is a central symbol of the Japanese imperial family and appears on the roof of the Byodoin Temple, constructed in 1053 CE, in one of the most famous architectural representations in Japanese history. A version of the Hoou also appears on Japanese currency, making it one of the few mythological creatures in Asia still circulating in people's wallets. Garuda. The Garuda was born fully formed, and the first thing it did was almost destroy the world. According to the Mahabharata's Adi Parva, when Garuda hatched, its body blazed with such radiance that the gods mistook it for Agni, the fire deity, and begged it to reduce its size before it incinerated everything. It obliged. Garuda is the divine eagle being, and Vahana, or mount, of Lord Vishnu, and its primary mythological act is the theft of Amrita, the nectar of immortality, which it stole to purchase the freedom of its mother from serpent captors. This made Garuda the eternal enemy of Nagas, the great serpents, a rivalry that would become one of the foundational conflicts in Asian mythology. It is simultaneously a Hindu deity, a Buddhist protector, a Jain symbol, and the national emblem of multiple modern nations, a range of adoption that reflects just how thoroughly Garuda saturated Asian religious culture across 2,000 years of worship and storytelling. Gandabherunda. The Gandabherunda is a two-headed bird from the mythology of the Karnataka region of India, and it exists specifically because even Vishnu's most powerful avatar was not enough. According to regional tradition, when Vishnu took the form of Narasimha, the half-man, half-lion, the avatar became so consumed by destructive rage that it threatened to tear reality apart. The only form powerful enough to contain Narasimha was the Gandabherunda, a bird of such overwhelming cosmic force that each of its two independently operating heads could withstand divine weapons. In iconography, it is almost always depicted statically. Wings spread in perfect bilateral symmetry, each talon crushing an elephant or a serpent, the implication being that motion would be too much. It became the royal emblem of the Wadiyar dynasty and remains the official state emblem of Karnataka today, one of the more remarkable cases of an ancient mythological creature persisting directly into modern governmental identity. Jatayu. Jatayu is perhaps the most emotionally significant sky creature in Hindu mythology, and it is not because of its power, but because of its failure. This enormous divine vulture, an ally of King Dasharatha, and later of Dasharatha's son Rama, encountered the demon king Ravana mid-flight, as Ravana carried the abducted Sita through the sky. Jatayu attacked. According to the Ramayana's Aranyakanda, the battle was brutal and one-sided. Ravana severed Jatayu's wings, sending the great bird crashing to earth below. But Jatayu did not die immediately. It held on long enough for Rama to find it, long enough to report what had happened and which direction Ravana had flown. Then it died in Rama's arms. Rama performed full funeral rites for the bird, an honor in Hindu tradition reserved for human beings, an act of grief and respect for a creature that had spent everything it had on a battle it could not win. Simurgh. The Simurgh is so old that, according to Persian tradition, it has witnessed the destruction and rebirth of the world 3 times. It roosts in the tree of knowledge at the edge of existence, and its feathers are said to contain the sum of all wisdom accumulated across those 3 world cycles. Its body, described in various sources as part bird, part dog, and part lion, is iridescent in a way that defies simple color description, its plumage shifting like a peacock's but vaster. In the Shahnameh, completed by the poet Ferdowsi around 1010 CE, it raises the hero Zal after he is abandoned by his father for being born with white hair, an act of compassion that shapes the entire subsequent narrative. In the Sufi poet Attar's Conference of the Birds, 30 birds journey across 7 valleys to find the Simurgh and discover, in a famous wordplay on its name, that they themselves are the Simurgh. Its influence spread eastward through Mughal India and across Central Asia along the Silk Road, making it one of the most geographically far-reaching mythological birds in the world. Naga, sky serpent. Nagas are primarily water creatures, but across Hindu, Buddhist, and Southeast Asian traditions, a specific class of Naga operates in the sky, controlling rain, causing eclipses, and ruling territories that span both ocean and atmosphere simultaneously. The most famous sky-associated Naga in Buddhist tradition is Mukalinda, the serpent king who spread his 7 hoods over the meditating Buddha to shelter him during a violent storm, an act of protection documented in the Pali Canon. In Khmer, Thai, and Lao traditions, Nagas are responsible for eclipses by swallowing the sun or moon, which is why communities across Southeast Asia would make loud noises during eclipses to frighten the serpent into releasing the swallowed celestial body. A Naga king in full sky form is depicted with a multi-hooded cobra spread wide above storm clouds, a jewel blazing at the center hood, its coiled body disappearing into the rain it is simultaneously creating and consuming. Bakunawa. The Bakunawa is a Visayan sea serpent from Philippine mythology that rises from the ocean at night to swallow the moon, and according to tradition, it has already succeeded 6 times. The world once had 7 moons, and the Bakunawa consumed 6 of them one by one before the gods intervened and hid the last moon away. Now it circles the sky searching for what remains, and when a lunar eclipse occurs, that is the Bakunawa trying again. For centuries, Filipino communities responded to eclipses by making as much noise as possible, banging pots, shouting, and playing music, specifically to startle the Bakunawa into spitting the moon back out. Its name is understood to mean moon-eater in the Visayan language, though the exact etymology has some variation across regional dialects. Visually, it is described as obsidian-scaled, impossibly vast, its open mouth large enough to engulf a full moon as it rises from the ocean into the night sky above. Sarimanok. The Sarimanok is a legendary bird of the Maranao people of Mindanao in the Philippines, and it is one of the most visually distinctive mythological creatures in Southeast Asian tradition. It is depicted with an explosion of red, gold, and green plumage, a fish held in its beak, and an elaborate tail that trails behind it in ornate, stylized curves. According to Maranao tradition, it serves as a messenger between the human world and the divine. Its appearance considered an omen of good fortune and an indication of elevated spiritual connection. The Sarimanok is central to Maranao visual culture, appearing extensively in the carved wooden panels of the Torogan, the traditional royal house, as well as in textiles and metalwork using the Okir design tradition. Whether its origins predate or coincide with the arrival of Islam among the Maranao people remains a subject of genuine debate among Philippine cultural scholars, with evidence pointing to deep pre-Islamic roots that were subsequently integrated into Islamic artistic tradition. Kinnara and Kinnari. The Kinnara and Kinnari are half-human, half-bird, celestial beings from Hindu and Buddhist tradition, and their defining characteristic is not power or violence, but beauty. They live in Himavanta, the mythological paradise forest at the base of Mount Meru, where they spend their existence as musicians and dancers of such extraordinary skill that their performances are considered the standard against which all earthly art is measured. The male Kinnara and female Kinnari are depicted with the upper body of a divinely beautiful human and the lower body of a swan or bird, their golden feathers catching the light of a forest that exists outside normal time. The most prominent literary appearance of the Kinnari is the Manohara Jataka, in which a Kinnari princess is captured by a human king and eventually reunited with her Kinnara husband. In Thailand, the Kinnari is among the most beloved mythological figures in the entire tradition, with representations appearing throughout the Wat Phra Kaeo temple complex in Bangkok. Garuda in Southeast Asia. The same Garuda that began in Hindu scripture eventually became the official symbol of multiple modern nations, and the process by which that happened is one of the more remarkable mythological migrations in history. Indonesia placed a stylized Garuda on its national emblem when the emblem was adopted in 1950, naming it Garuda Pancasila, with the bird's feathers arranged to encode national symbolism: 17 on each wing, 8 on the tail, 19 on the lower body, and 45 on the neck, together forming the date of Indonesian independence on August 17, 1945. Thailand's royal family uses the Garuda, known there as Krut, as its official seal. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Garuda figures appear carved into the stone galleries as sky guardians, wings spread in heraldic posture, gripping serpents in each claw. A being that began as a divine eagle in ancient Sanskrit texts ended up on government documents across an entire region of the world. Imugi. The Imugi is a Korean proto-dragon, a giant pale serpent that lives underwater and spends centuries, specifically 1,000 years according to tradition, waiting for the moment when a Yuiju, a heavenly orb, falls from the sky and grants it the power to ascend and become a true dragon. The problem is timing. If the Imugi is not in exactly the right place, at exactly the right moment when the orb descends, the opportunity passes, and according to some versions of the tradition, the Imugi falls to earth and dies rather than ascending. The image this produces is one of the most melancholy in Korean mythology, a creature of immense power and patience, coiling upward through storm clouds toward a glowing sphere that may or may not be within reach. Some Imugi are described as benevolent water guardians. Others are malevolent. The tradition is primarily oral, with limited ancient textual sources, which means regional variations are significant and worth acknowledging. Chollima. The Chollima is a winged horse so fast that no human has ever successfully mounted one, not because it is aggressive, but because it never stays on the ground long enough. According to Korean tradition, the Chollima lands for only a fraction of a second before launching itself back into the sky, its hooves touching a mountaintop for just long enough to leave a faint impression before it vanishes into the clouds above. Its name translates roughly to 1,000-li horse, a li being a traditional unit of distance, and the name is meant to convey a speed that makes the animal functionally uncatchable. Culturally, the Chollima became a metaphor for exceptional talent that goes unrecognized, the genius that society fails to harness because no one moves fast enough to catch it. In 1956, North Korea launched the Chollima movement, explicitly invoking the mythological horse as a symbol of rapid national development, giving an ancient sky creature a remarkably specific second career in 20th century political rhetoric. Huma bird. The Huma bird has never landed. According to Persian and Mughal-era South Asian tradition, it spends its entire existence in flight, from birth to death, never once touching the ground, and it feeds exclusively on bones, its beak adapted to crack them mid-air as it descends briefly toward the earth before rising again without contact. The reward for being below it is extraordinary. The shadow of the Huma falling across a person is said to confer kingship or divine blessing, which makes it simultaneously the most inaccessible and the most sought-after creature in the sky. In Sufi poetry, including works attributed to the tradition of Rumi and Hafez, the Huma functions as a symbol of the soul that resists earthly corruption, perpetually airborne and perpetually untouched. Its influence spread deeply into Mughal court culture, where it appeared in miniature paintings and poetic imagery as the ultimate symbol of elevation, both literal and spiritual. Sanzuwu and Yatagarasu. In ancient Chinese mythology, the sun was not a ball of burning gas. It was 10 golden crows, each with 3 legs, resting in the branches of the cosmic Fusang tree at the edge of the Eastern Sea. Each day, according to tradition, the goddess Shihe would harness one crow sun to her carriage and drive it across the sky. One day, all 10 appeared simultaneously, and the world began to burn. The hero Hu Yi took his bow and shot 9 of them down, saving everything that existed, leaving only one sun in the sky. The 3-legged crow, the Sanzuwu, migrated into Japanese mythology as the Yatagarasu, a divine messenger bird who guided the legendary Emperor Jimmu through difficult terrain to establish his kingdom, according to the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. In Korea, the same 3-legged crow appears as the Samjogo in Goguryeo Kingdom murals dating back centuries, painted in gold against a red disc. The same bird, the same 3 legs, the same solar symbolism, moving across 3 distinct cultures and leaving its 3-toed footprint in each one. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.